Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition, we're going to be looking at sexual and gender-based violence in Liberia. And by the way, we are live on FOL TV and Prime FM 105.5. At this time, I switch it over to Mr. Prince Momba at controls there in Liberia Prime FM. Prince, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. It's good to be on tonight once more. Of course, I was not here on Saturday and we did not come on Monday, so it's great to be back on air tonight. Our listeners have been asking questions, but we are back tonight. So let me say thanks for joining me here in Monrovia, Liberia.
Thank you. And the song we play at the beginning is by Miss Mene. Stop the rape. Stop it. Stop.
Yeah,
And so
and
tonight we're going
too.
to be talking about sexual and gender-based violence. I'm happy to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. And joining us to discuss this is Councillor John Gabriel. He is the legal team lead of the human rights group. That's the Foundation of Human Rights Defense. Councillor, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be here.
And thank you so much for coming. Joining us also for the first time on Focus on Liberia, Women with Worlds. That's from G Broadcasting Corporation, Glendy Jane Jr. Glendy, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And please accept our ceremonial caller to say welcome for the first time on Focus on Liberia. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Last, definitely not the least, is journalist and former TRC Commissioner Mansa Emilio Washington. Mansa, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It is a pleasure always. And hello to all of my co-panelists.
Thank you. Again, we want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. And of course, we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia, and live on Prime FM 105.5. I want to say greetings to folks in Liberia, whether you are from all the way behind God's back in Sino County, in Bapulu, in Bombing, Maryland, or Mount Gibby, wherever you are, we say welcome. To my folks there in Bannersville, me and Ben Stapp, say welcome to the show, and we hope we're going to have a good show tonight. The issue of sexual and gender-based violence is always in the news, and whether it's because of social media or what. But before I even start, I want to just go around the room. This whole thing about sexual and gender-based violence. I want to start with Councillor John Gilbert to first break it down for us when they say sexual and gender-based violence. What does that mean legally? And then you in Liberia.
Thank you very much. Again, it is my pleasure to be on this very important show tonight. As the name, the names indicate sexual and gender-based violence. So violence all by itself is a bad word. It does not suggest a goodwill. It does not suggest anything like consent. And so sexual violence is where a person move on a weaker person, probably a little child, or maybe somebody who has been interacting with him over a period of time. They've had, normally rape would take place with individual who has been within the community and has known the victims and a victim's relatives for some time. They have interacted and they know one another. And so it is from that perspective that the person moves in and commit this menace against the person of a little child or even an adult person. Preferably if it is a female, female and little kids are always vulnerable. But where consent is not a fighter is whether the child is grown up or the child dresses in a way that entices her assailant, in no way gives an excuse for a person to be sexually abused. Our laws are very clear. If you read the new law, it says rape is the least penetration of the penis into the vagina or anus of a person. The least penetration. Other lawyers say, other books say penetration, however slight. So the slightest penetration of the penis or a foreign object into the anus or vagina of a person, or put another way around, the process whereby a person uses his male organ into the mouth of other parts of the victim, it also amounts to what you call rape. Okay, if a person uses the mouth of a female and insert her penis into the mouth of that person, of course, that is an oral sex. It also amounts to rape.
Thank you.
Normally, the victims, in all rape cases, will not give consent. If it is a condition where the assailant, the perpetrator, has used an intoxicant, or the perpetrator, whereas is the custodian, is in charge of the victim, say in a hospital, a nurse or a doctor is on shift, and this female victim is on the wall, and he looks around, he sees nobody, and he violates that person, it is also rape. And that rape amounts to what you call aggravated rape, because it is going to be a rape wherein the victim was not at liberty to make a determination. Some police officer who got a female in prison, for instance, and you use that person who is an adult and you have sex with the person, whereas they did not have liberty, whether the person is in prison and she agrees, he or she agrees to have sex with you, it is still construed and considered to be rape. There are three, let me just conclude with, there are three categories of rape. And let me state it here emphatically. The new rape law talks about, the first one is called, I want to start with statutory rape. Statutory rape is wherein the victim is less than 18 under our Liberian law. In America and other states, the age of consent is different. I live in Ohio. Ohio is 16, right? The child must be 16 and above. But any child that is less than 16, if he has sex with them in Ohio, he's committed rape because the person does not have the consent power to agree or not to agree. And so the second category is called general rape or second degree rape. Second degree rape, normally the perpetrator goes to jail for 10 years or less. It doesn't go beyond 10 years. For rape of the first degree, which is called statutory rape, or rape where the person is in your custody, in the hospital, in prison, or you force somebody who is crippled or so to have sex with them without their consent, whether the person is more than 45 years old, it is still construed to be a first degree rape. And then general rape or second degree rape will be if none of the aforesaid have been mentioned. If you didn't use force, if you didn't use intoxicant, if you didn't do it to a person in your custody, not a person in the hospital, but you went against a person, against a woman. For instance, you are having sex with a woman and she tells you stop, and you refuse to stop and you continue to go, even though the person is adult, the person can claim that you raped them and the law will hold you responsible for it. All right. Then you have what you call a conspiratory rape. That is called gang rape. Gang rape, the person, there is no age. Age is not a factor, whether the person is 70 years old, as much as the rape was a conspiracy, where you have 2, 3, 4 persons conspiring. Everybody doesn't have to have sex with that victim, but as much as everybody is acting, the action of one is attributed to the action of all. So Dennis is at the door. Massa is manning the gate, and Gabriel is in the room doing it. And Maja, it is established there was a network of operation between the three of us. The three of us are equally liable as the man who committed a rape in the room. That is called gang rape. So I just want to stop there to just lay the premise, for us to move on.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, our topic, sexual and gender-based violence, and really what's going on in the country. And even before I start, we want to, our hearts go out to all the victims. I am not even qualified to speak about this. So for the respect of all the people that have been affected by this entrenched evil, we want to say, and the discussion, this we want to be very sensitive to those that are being affected, and for the respect, even people watching the show and panelists, we want to say, please forgive us if we say anything that the language is not politically correct or it doesn't meet the standard. It's because maybe we are acting out of complete ignorance and it's not deliberate. So let me bring in Massa, who is a journalist, been reporting the whole news of rape and sexual-based violence and other forms of sexual-based violence getting to. I mean, it's so alarming. Reading these things every day, Massa, and hearing about them, how does it make you feel? Let's start from there before we even go into the whole discussion.
Actually, it is horrifying, and it is shocking every time. I say shocking every time because you never get used to these kinds of things happening. They've happened historically forever and ever. We saw a proliferation of sexual and gender-based violence, especially during the war. But then people might want to justify that there was the complete breakdown of law and order. So people did what they wanted to do. But that doesn't still make it right. But even after the end of the war, the silence of the guns and everything, and we back to, some people like to think we actually have peace. I'm sitting in the middle with that concept. But at a time where we're supposed to be restructuring and rebuilding this society, here we are faced with this horrible issue of sexual and gender-based violence, and not only sexual and gender-based violence. This is a topic, but other forms of violence that are taking place all over the place. It's just completely horrifying, and it's an indictment of us as a society, as Liberians. Where are we going with this? When is this going to end? What are the authorities doing? The people who are supposed to be leading the society in terms of the rule of law. What's going on with them? What's happening with the Ministry of Gender? What's happening even with the President's office? What's happening with our laws on the books? Why are they not being enforced? So those are some of the issues that we think about when we think about these things. But honestly, for me as a woman and an activist, someone who has been dabbling with the issue of human rights, especially women's and gender-based, women's rights. Don't forget, I was the first Liberian Woman of Courage award. I won an international award for fighting for women, especially during the warring era. And it's just really sad. It makes you feel like you have done absolutely nothing, and it makes you feel like all of the sacrifices, all of the hard work, we have done nothing. And let me just say quickly, though, even though this, as we're discussing this sexual and gender-based violence, let's understand that gender here doesn't only refer to women. I'm sure that the rest of my guests and panelists will know. Gender does not only refer to women. Gender refers to men as well. But when we speak of gender-based violence, we immediately think about women because historically, women are the ones who have experienced sexual and gender-based violence forever and ever, and women continue to bear the burns of the sexual and gender-based violence, and of course, the proliferation of sexual and gender-based violence taking place has always been against women. But men also, they may be in a minority when you do the math, but men have also experienced and have continued to experience sexual and gender-based violence, some of them in silence they're not speaking about it for varying different reasons. I just wanted to make that a distinction. So as we discuss this, we also understand that uh, this is a very broad topic. So we are threading, and I hope we thread very cautiously, like you stated from the beginning.
Thank you. Let me welcome again another colleague who is in this talk show business. Glenda, I watched your show and you had this mother and daughter, and I mean that was beautiful. I really enjoyed the way you and your co-host engaged them. So you talk to people about these things. Let me just give you a few things here about the news coming out of Liberia about these things. Let me give few examples here. 17-year-old neighbor raped 3-year-old girl. 30-year-old man alleges rape sodomizes a 13-year-old girl on multiple occasions. Philadelphia church take firm stance in pastor rape case. President Weah instructs Kemenya Musa Dean to address rape allegation at Liberian embassy. And these are just rape stories for this year. Few of them are just collected just to make a point. Gender minister blames increasing rape cases on slow judicial system. Ministry of Justice agrees to prosecute police officer accused of rape. Police haunted by rape allegation. Father allegedly raped 19-year-old daughter and leaves her pregnant. SOS National Director accused of rape but says the allegation is witch hunt. Teacher who impregnated 14-year-old student arrested. We have the 13th Judicial Court in Upper Mangibi sentenced Abraham Wento, age 31, to 40 years in prison for murdering 13-year-old Grace Tamba of Boys Town. That was after a rape too. And the list just go on. This other monster. And it doesn't stop there. The police at Do community Tatos Pakala on this the police at Do Community Police Depot is attempting to compromise a rape case that involved 5-year-old minor who was raped by a 46-year-old man. Here you see the parents holding their daughters ages below 10, 13 and 9 were also raped. Glendale, these are the kind of news coming out of Liberia. From you've been talking to people and then watching these things, what really is going on and what are you hearing as to why these things continue to happen?
So I think it's important to understand, and just to go back to what the counselor said, Masa, it's important for our people listening and even the people in the radio land listening. Hello, Prince. That sexual and gender-based violence is huge.
Yeah.
So it's not, so you have two parts to it. It's sexually motivated, and it also can be directed to a particular class of gender. So it can be to women, it can be to girls, it can be to boys. So when you think about these things, you feel, why now? Why so many cases? I think one thing we have to look at is not how we got here, but the fact that we are here. What can we do to stop where we are now? What can we do to stop the bleeding? It's like no mother, and that's not to say fathers don't feel bad, but for I think it's more difficult for the women to hear it and watch it over and over and over again. It's like, what's happening? What's being done? There's so many blames we can apportion the justice system. We can say this, but when we have our president who has declared Liberia a case of where rape is extremely high in 2020, then what are we doing about this? How are we stopping this? Where so you can say, okay, when you look at the rural areas, it's almost like people in the rural areas are being equally raped and sexually molested as people in the city. So this is an I don't know if it's an epidemic or a pandemic in Liberia. This is something that is widespread, that something has to give. It's almost like every time you hear it, the first thing that comes to your mind is, what are we doing? What are we going to do about this? How do we stop this? Everybody wants to stop it, but when do we come together to stop what's going on? Stop the bleeding. And I think that's why I always think about it is, it's a lot. It's alarming. It's just too many people, too many rape cases, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. It's like, what do we need to do to be able to stop this? And it can't just be that only one group of people are interested in stopping it and the other group of people, they're not. It's almost like we have to extend a hand. It's like I have to extend my hand, you have to extend your hand. We have to hold our hands together to see what we can do to fight this pandemic in our country. Because take it or leave it, Liberia is our country. This reflects on us as Liberians in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. And Prince, let me come to you. You are there as a journalist in Monrovia, in Liberia. And these cases, is it because they're being reported, or what's the trend that you see? Is it, are they getting more and more reported because people are open about it to come up, or it's always been that way for the past 5 to 10 years? What really is the level, or is it we are far from a Liberia and so we are making mountain out of molehill, or is it that alarming as we are seeing in the news and we've been terrified by this kind of thing? Prince, what's on the ground?
Thank you for joining me, Janet. So, like all the speakers have said, the rape cases in Liberia are alarming. I mean, there's no joke about that. Recently, I conducted an interview with the Minister of Gender when she went to speak to a certain graduation program. And I asked the question, what is responsible for the alarming increase in rape cases in Liberia? And they are visible. You see the victims, and then you see the perpetrators. And I mean, like you posted in the channel or for the show tonight, she always blamed that on, I mean, the judicial system. The cases are not adjudicated faster as expected. So at the end of the day, I mean, the perpetrators will soon be set free. But is that a justification? And then, so to answer your question, that the rape cases in Liberia are alarming. They only increase by the day, and not even everything can be in the media. Not everything can be in the newspaper. Not everything can be reported to the press. Some of them can be compromised just because people feel that, I mean, nothing could come out of it as one reason for that. And another one is they do not know their way out. So when it happens to them, they just sit down with it and live with the trauma. And so it's alarming. I mean, you were talking about the incident with the student at the university right here on Ken Johnson Road. Someone wanted to take entrance, and the girl was abused. And someone is saying it was done because it was by consent. So this is serious, and I think someone will have counselor on the as one of the guests tonight, and the panelists all are instituted and know how the thing has worked over the years. So we need. I'm hoping that at the end of this daily show, it won't just be that some of the talk show we have in Liberia or some of the rhetoric we're doing in Liberia and that becomes sort of it. We discuss it. Remember 2019, young people to 2020, not 2020. Group of Liberians, mostly young people, took to the street and petitioned this government against rape. This government against rape. And then the president made, a policy statement that time. From that time up to now, rape cases are increased even more. The Domestic Violence Act was passed in 2019. Mm-hmm. And what is been done in that life? Since the law was passed that we have law on book, yet they still have rape cases on the increase. Like this council are reading the rape law, there are laws on the book. Then what's happening? So what is responsible here? Is the minister is telling me that it's because cases are not being adjudicated faster, and it means so. Then the question you asked me, sometimes it appears that in Liberia we just want to exacerbate information, or we want to get at maybe those things authority, but this is serious, and it might be you tomorrow, it might be me tomorrow, it might be your relative tomorrow, it might be someone closer to you tomorrow. So that's how I can answer the question, Dennis.
Thank you. And you hear us talking about rape mainly because sexual and gender-based violence, that's broad. So we may speak more on rape because this is just too much and we can't take it anymore. Counselor, let me be direct. What are the laws on the book? What really is the punishment for rape according to our law? Let's say you rape a woman, you rape a child, you sodomize a child, and all these different things. what are the specific laws on the book? What's supposed to be done to such a person if they are guilty of rape, if they are guilty of molesting a little child, a baby, if they are guilty of sodomizing a boy or a girl, if they're guilty of doing all these other horrific things against other human beings? What does the law say?
Thank you again, Dennis. The law is clear. The law says for a person who sodomizes a little boy, for a person who abuses a little child, a little girl, for instance, whose age is less than 80, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and the rest of it, the punishment is lifetime imprisonment. That is the maximum. And for a person who abuses somebody who is 80 and above, now let me be clear. For a person who commits statutory rape, the age must be 80 and above. I want to be very categorical here that nobody whose age is less than less than 18 can commit the crime of rape. A child who is less than 18, a male child or female child who is less than 18 is incompetent to commit rape. So the law says, hey, the victim must be 18 or less, and the assailant or the perpetrator must be 18 and above. In that instance, the punishment is maximum lifetime imprisonment. That is squarely based on the discretion of the judge. On the other side, you have second-degree rape. Second-degree rape is the person is above 18, the person has consent power, the person can say yes and no to sex. As for anybody who less than 18 and below, the law says they don't have consent power. They don't have, no matter how much the person entices you and you feel like having sex and you went and have sex with them, the law holds you responsible for rape. But for a person who is 18 and above, a female who is 18 and above has the power to consent to sex. In an event where you breach that consent without the acceptance of the person, and you have sex with them, you have committed a rape called second-degree rape, and the law says it is punishable by 10 years maximum imprisonment. You have another category of rape where you use threat of words, threat of force, or use weapon. If you don't open her, I will kill you. And you took the bullet to her head, the knife to her side, and you force her into sex. Another one is, like I said before, the person is in your custody. It used to be called long ago abuse of war. The person is in your custody. I prosecuted one guy from Cape Mount. He was the deputy prison superintendent for operations. He had sex with one of the prisoners, a female Sierra Leonean prisoner who was in jail for drug. And we were able to disrobe him, and we prosecuted him, and we convicted him. That guy worked with the Ministry of Justice, and at the time I worked with the Ministry of Justice, but we prosecuted him for abuse of war. Now, this time, the new law says when you have sex with anybody who is under your custody, be it a police officer having female in his prison, and he brings her up at night and has sex with her, it is construed as rape, because the person did not have liberty to make a decision as to whether she wants to have sex with you or not. Now, you come to a third one. Before the third one, I'll tell you about using intoxicant to impair the person's ability.
So let me follow up on this one. So I get that point. So my next question is, what must happen? Okay, I know in other cases like the current case involving Mr. Alexander Cummings, that when there are certain things that when you do, let's say a criminal act, so the state take over. So it means that even if the person who took Mr. Cummings to court withdraw, the state can still prosecute that case because it's a criminal act.
Right.
What is the deal with rape? So because I keep hearing that the victim got to do this or the people got to do this, people got to cooperate. If we know that a rape occurred, wouldn't the state, the police, just take over and prosecute whether the family agrees or not, or how does that work?
In trial, when you go to trial of cases, normally the victim, or the person who has taken the complaint to the court is the witness of the government. The person is served as witnesses for the state. Those relatives and friends and other, the person is part and parcel of the class of witnesses that come to testify for and on behalf of the state. In an event where you have, for instance, in the case of rape, that I was talking about the absence of a DNA machine where you don't have compelling evidence.
Let's start with compelling evidence, or you are caught. Let's say, because we see people, I saw a little girl was selling milk candy, and this guy went and raped her, and people were there, people saw it. In that case, wouldn't the law just take over? The parents got to come and, people got to be witnesses, or how does that work? In the case the person is caught, or you see evidence, I don't know what evidence may be, but you get the point.
Even if the person is caught,
okay,
you still need the person to appear before court to answer to the lawyers, to answer to court. For instance, in murder, if Mr. Dennis Jha was caught murdering somebody in red light, putting the head of the person out of the shoulder, and we caught you and brought you to court, the law is that they will ask you to plead. And if you decided to plead not guilty, or you decided to plead, for instance, guilty, yes, I am guilty, I am the killer of, John Brown. The law is saying that testimony of the accused is set aside as though he has never even testified, and the onus, in law, is the onus probandi. The onus is on the state to produce compelling evidence and witnesses to convict the defendant. You can't just say because you saw him doing it. The trial is a technique. It has procedures. It's a science all by itself. So the police will not just go, like I was talking about the case about the 9-year-old woman. She said she couldn't go to court. We met a judge. How do we proceed with such a case? Like in the instance of Mariah Willie, I told you the police, and when I saw Prince Mobile here, I thought it was the police, Prince Mobile, because we all worked together on that case. You understand? So Mariah Willie was arrested by the police. When we took him to the police station, we collected his wife. Him and his wife were taken to Central. But then the unfortunate thing was that the police could not even hold Mariah Willie because there was no evidence. There was no evidence in the sense that the victim who should have come to say yes, or to submit to medical test, the medical examination, or to even answer to some trailing from the police, did not submit. They decided to abscond justice. Not that they absconded, they decided because they just denied themselves justice. They fled, they left the case. Today, that victim should be either in the Ivory Coast or in Ghana. The person was just doing some little cash. So it becomes very difficult for the prosecution to proceed where the private prosecutress, as the person is called, wherein the private prosecutress is not present.
Thank you.
If the person is not present, it creates a very serious bottleneck to the trial process. It is difficult.
Thank you.
And Dennis, I must be very frank with you. If I were in the defense, maybe not a human rights person, and not somebody who is much, empathetic towards women, I would have been one of those bad lawyers going to court. And if I had taken some of these cases that we want in the walk to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court would turn them. Why? Because most of the evidence we are not telling. It's just some doctor come and say, yeah, this is the medical report. Like we took Dr. Wilhelmina Jara, the current health minister now, we took her to one case, who was the witness for the state. It was not easy. It was by the skin of our teeth that we won our case. We nearly lost the case. Again, I am saying, but with the presence with forensic evidence, if you have a forensic machine that is able to say, yeah, this person, semen or blood, what you will call matches with what was gotten from the vagina or anal swab. And so when the species of evidence is clear, is compelling, is overwhelming, it still has a good case. You cannot proceed to close wherein you don't have a private prosecutors, you don't have a witness for the state. The police officer will come and testify, but the police officer is just an expert witness. The doctor will come and testify as an expert witness. Other witnesses will come and testify are witnesses. Where is the private prosecutors?
Thank you, Councillor. Glennie, you have a question on your face. I can see.
Yeah, I have a question because with all of these laws, Councillor, with all of this thing you're saying, we still have a problem. If we understand that we don't have a DNA machine, or we understand that we don't have the different machines that we need to be able to prove somebody, to prove that they caused the rape, what are we doing as a country? We have the laws, and it's almost one of the things that caught my attention, and I need to link it to a story that happened in Nigeria with a Liberian embassy worker daughter who was raped in a foreign country at the Liberian embassy. But then you're saying that they're saying that they could do nothing with the boy or the two boys because they were less than 18 years old. So what did we do? They raped that girl over and over. They were able to escape Nigeria, come to Liberia, and they were infused into the society and allowed to go to school. So this is like, we know the problems. We keep saying, oh, we don't have this. We don't have this. If we had this, this would be this. We have this law. But even with the laws we have, they're not helping us now. And just to even point to what Prince said, this is just a little bit of what we're hearing. This is just a few of the stories that's able to come to the media or come to on social media. What about those other stories that people are silent of? So if we know better, we do better. If we have a law and we know what we need to make a difference in the cases, then we need to see what we can do. If the country has been deemed as a pandemic because of rape, then what are we doing as a government to help this? This is not a blame game thing. We have the laws, but the laws are just sitting on the books because we can't prove that this person was raped. So then where are we?
And definitely, I like how you came in, and this is how I wanted to go. As I say, I'm not even qualified to ask you any question. So, Marcel, feel free to jump in at any time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question or comment, but let Councillor respond, and then we can go to you.
Like I was saying, you are very right. There is a big systemic, problem. The entire system must be involved. Guess what? At the level of the Criminal Code E in Macerado County, you have 2 judges appointed to preside over rape cases. When I was sitting as the director for SGBV, look, every 2 cases that we tried today, we saw 21 coming the next day in Macerado. And if we have, for instance, the judiciary apportioning another room for Judge Sianet Clinton Johnson to be seated, and Judge Serena Gallagher seated in the other court, you have 2 courts running simultaneously. One of the main bottlenecks that we have, you got only 1 jury, 1 grand jury sitting in Macerado with criminal code A, B, C, D, E, code E. Only 1 grand jury hearing all of the cases. So when cases go to Macerado County, if you are not a strong director to really stay on your feet, I have people in jail for like 3-4 years, they are not going to court. But we try our best to keep them there, relying on 1 law, that the new law says that rape should be treated as a capital offense for the purpose of bail. So that the defense will not just come and proffer bills and get the people out of jail, and that the backlash on the society will be heavy. Society will not understand. We need to tackle this thing from a holistic point of view, Dennis. I have said over and over, prosecutorial exercises will not conclude the matter, will not minimize it at any level. It will further exacerbate it. You know why? During the late George Fire terms, one of the terms inside in criminal code E, we had a meeting with some public defenders, along with some people from OMIO, some donors, some other parties, international folks came and joined in this meeting. In the meeting, we agreed to fast track the rape cases. Defense, go to the prison, tell your people that if they can confess judgment, we will minimize the sentence. We can talk to the court to minimize the sentence. But they cannot just be in jail. We want to see how we can proceed to reduce the docket. We tried a guy, his name was George Bebo. This guy had abused 3 girls, 3 little girls. In fact, the last girl was 3 and she passed. He abused her so terribly to the extent that he inserted his fingers into the anus of the third child, removed the intestine, and cut it into pieces and were left on the crime scene. When we collect, I'm sure these pieces of intestine are still in the alcohol in my office because I had it stored in the alcohol in my office. The girl got home and she passed. The other one was so what you might call until they took her to the Nana was wife our in Liberia. She used to use some plastic on her side.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Right, something like that. And this guy, we asked him to confess judgment. He refused to confess judgment for fear that if the judge came out of a harsher sentence, the guys again will resent coming to their lawyers to come to court to confess judgment. Judge Fire said, okay, instead of sending them to jail for 50 years, the prosecution said I should send them to jail for 50 years. We'll send him for 25. Oh, they got angry again. So the thing is that there is we need to have a complete, a strong awareness machinery that will go from place to place and engage in person-to-person contact with our villagers, with our people in the little nooks and corners of our villages, in the slum community, in Westwood, other places. We were trying the McIntosh case. McIntosh is a guy who abused about 9 little kids.
You mean the More Than Me Foundation?
More Than Me case.
Yeah, More Than Me, yeah.
That case, because McIntosh was seen as a hero. McIntosh was a guy who used to go collect the poor little girls from West Point, and take them to this More Than Me school.
A serial abuser.
And was abusing the little girls, even going on one of the white folks there. As time went by, this secret leaked. McIntosh was arrested. And McIntosh went to trial. For the first time we went to trial with McIntosh. In fact, the medical report of the girl was so horrible, my brother. Most of them, I don't like to say it, but most of them came down with, I don't want to say what they came down with.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But most of them became very ill, and I know they are undergoing proper treatment now. But it was terrible. When we went to try McIntosh, the folks from West Point came. There were more than 5,000 men chanting pro-McIntosh slogan and saying McIntosh should be free. The jurors were listening. The jurors, we had only 4 of the jurors that came our way that voted for us. So what did we end up with? We ended up with a hang jury. God bless us, put McIntosh back in jail. McIntosh would have been free right there. McIntosh would have been freed. When we took him back to court, the next time we're trying to bring him to trial, it was when he passed. And he died of some kind of sickness that I can't call on this platform. And we turned the body over. That became a big political issue again. Today, Honorable Sakla Nyumali is one of the representatives in Parliament. In Parliament, he's in Liberia. It was Sakla Nyumali and other relatives that came to my office to seek my permission to take delivery of the corpse of the late McIntosh. And we told them to go ahead and bury him. It was misconstrued. The society is so limited. It needs education.
Thank you.
Just study Moreover.
And Councillor will come to more. Let me go to Massa.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sitting here and listening to to the councillor. First, let me thank you. I can see a man who is trying his best. You and your team, you guys are trying your best. But then also, I'm sitting here. I'm looking to. You can't even call the name of this offender. So all these taboo issues surrounding or dealing with the issue of addressing systemic and gross human rights violation. We are discussing gross human rights violation here. Okay, so this McIntosh guy, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to call any of the girls' name because they are protected. But it was widely reported that this McIntosh guy had HIV or the AIDS virus. Okay, so he had the AIDS virus. Excuse me, he was messing with people's kids, or molesting these children. So if this guy really had the HIV virus, imagine what is happening out in the society over there. So for me, Dennis, I see the issue of a society that is complacent. Okay, we are complicit in what is happening as Liberians. It's because all these taboo issues, you can't even call the name of the perpetrator. Psychologically, he's protected because people like this good counsel who have been trying his best. You can see how you have these big men in Africa, these people who are protecting these people. For example, I remember that case very distinctly because our Vice President Joel Howard Taylor came on fire from some of us on Facebook because she was one of those who was advocating for this for this group, this white woman who raised millions and millions of dollars to open this school. And this McIntosh guy, I think later on towards the end of the debate, she tried to explain herself, but it was horrible. So here you are, you have the vice president of the country who is a female. Her first reaction towards this horrible act is to provide justification and protection for the alleged perpetrator and his institution. In the United States of America, that white woman, they would have immediately been shut down and they would have been prosecuted. So these are some of the things that are plaguing us. And then also this issue with not being able to gather evidence. The minister of gender, Piso, also alluded to that. Look, this is the issue here of a society that has not mustered the political goodwill to deal with these issues, period. Any society that wants to deal with the issue of systemic human rights violation, such as we are discussing here, it starts from the top. Our leaders are lukewarm when it comes to dealing with these issues. For example, it's not an issue of law. We have enough laws on the book. And I will make full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer, but we have enough laws on the book internationally as well. We have all these international laws, violence, the UN Global Database on Violence Against Women in Liberia. We have the UNIFEM established, closely working. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Paris 1948. Then we have the Beijing Declaration in 1995. And we have even President Weah himself in 2020, President Weah declared rape epidemic a crisis. And in so doing, he established an interministerial task force to deal with the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. And he didn't stop there. Last year, he unveiled a DNA machine.
Wow.
Yeah, last year, President George Weah unveiled a DNA machine to aid in the investigation of rape. Okay, and that was turned over to the Interministerial Task Force on Sexual and Gender-Based Violence. So, because this is all part of their roadmap against sexual and gender-based violence, 2020 to 2022. So they're putting in all these instruments in place, fine, but they are not being enforced, they are not being reinforced, and they are not being supported. So here you are, you have a national budget, and about 57% or 58% of the national budget goes to the salary of just the top tier ministers in government, and then the president office and that national legislature. That national legislature, I'm calling it that because that's an institution that has so disappointed on the national legislature. You would think that when you establish all of these legal instruments to deal with the issue of rape, you show goodwill. Fine, we appreciate it, President Weah, but where is the support? Where is the budgetary funding? The national legislature, where's the budgetary funding for the interministerial task force to deal with this rape epidemic? Where's the budgetary funding to assist, Councillor or Gabriel and his group that are dealing with this rape epidemic? This is ridiculous. So we can sit here and be angry all we want and be upset all we want. We can have 1 million talk shows around this. President, we are every year, every time, every November, when they have the 16 days of activation for activism for awareness for gender and sexual abuse. So we can do all these things. But when they are not being enforced, they are not being supported. It's like you gave somebody a Jaguar to drive, but then you don't put any oil. You don't pay the $125 to change the oil, and you don't give them any gas. How are they going to drive this? I mean, we Liberians, we got to stop this thing. The hypocrisy is just too much with us. We got to be serious about serious things in our country. They're raping our children. The councillor just said the 3-year-old child died from the rape. I mean, come on. And we talk. So, President, we are and the rest of them, this falls squarely at their feet. Okay, yeah, so you commissioned the DNA machine. Thank you very much. You established the interministerial task force. Thank you very much. And then what next? What next? The Minister of Gender, let me quote her own statistic here. I saw it somewhere. Okay, so this is Piso Sedita at a meeting. So according to the latest statistics from the Gender Ministry, this was in 2020, late 2020, when they had the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence in Liberia. Then she has said in her report, this was extracted from her report, more than 2,240 cases of gender-based violence were reported. Rape alone accounted for 80% of those cases, which is 1,792. So out of 2,240 gender-based violence cases that were reported, 1,792 accounted for rape alone. Okay, and the age range that's being most raped is between 13 to 17. Yes, they're raping, other ages, but the age range is the most, prevalent. And so it all has to do with the political goodwill of the government and her functionaries. So you have a rape court, you have 2 judges, and then they will tell you there is not sufficient evidence to try cases.
And Marcel, let me just support what you are saying through the budget, right? They say if you want to know somebody's priority,
yeah,
the EPS that will take care of President Weah and his family, the budget is 10 million. The police are supposed to be arresting these people. Their budget is 5 million.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Then let's go to presidential affairs that have maybe less than 20 employees. 20 million.
Right.
Compare that to JFK, 6 million. President alone, 5 million. And then we're talking about the court cases. You talk about the judges. The entire judiciary. No wonder why, if you look places like Sino County, they will have 1 court. 18 million is their budget. Compare that to the do-nothing legislators, 64 million.
Yeah.
So tell me, and people keep complaining, say if you want to see somebody's priority, look at their budget.
Look at the budget.
You general minister complains, say, hey, the judicial is the cost, right? But you don't put in any money in the judiciary. No. Okay.
Exactly.
The slow judicial system. You have one person, as Councillor said, handling all the cases. Okay, there are no appellate courts, so even if you want to go to the Supreme Court alone cannot even get all the appeals. In Monserrato, because I interview lawyers here, so the courts that you will have 1 court in a county doing everything, and it shouldn't be that way. So people deliberately bottleneck this institution, and then we complain, say we don't have it. To me, that's the problem. And Councillor, you can explain this better. What I really hate to hear is to say, oh, people are compromising the case, and that's why. So why is it that the Cummings case now nobody compromising it?
Dennis, please, Dennis, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Let me just finish reading some stats there for the counselor, and then he can answer us. So as I was saying, according to their own statistics, the minister of justice in 2021, the aggregate of all cases coming from the minister of justice, okay, of sexual and gender-based violence against women, okay, in 2021 is 49%. 11 of which cases went to court. 5 of those cases are still under investigation, and nobody has been brought to justice yet. Nobody has been brought to. This is just 2021. Of course, it's recent statistics. Nobody has been brought to justice yet. So the point I'm making is we can't just talk like Dennis just so eloquently showed us. We have to put our money where our heart is. You can't have all these institutions. You build all these institutions because you want to create jobs for your partisans, but then you don't actually support them. You don't give them the support. And then our officials, like I said, the blame is squarely at their feet. Like this vice president, I'm crying on her name because the way she handles things. Like, for example, she's blaming the victims and their family. She made a statement the other day blaming the mothers because, quote unquote, they didn't train their daughters well. Okay, yes. So it's a lack of discipline and training of their daughters. That's why children are getting raped. Are you really serious, man? This woman is a woman and vice president. How can you say that? So even if you think there is something there, that's how you feel. You cannot say it. You're vice president of this country. You're the mother of this country. Children are being raped. 3-year-old children are dying from the rape. And then you come out and make that kind of careless statement. And you guys are the one who's sucking up all the budget of vampire institution like that national legislature.
Thank you. And Councillor, you can add to that. What we notice also is only poor people, children are the victims, right? So if most of the, I don't know what you see from you handling cases like that. The victims are mainly poor people, children. Go ahead.
Let me come into why poor people, children are vulnerable, and they are, primarily the victims for now, and they will always be the victim under such a regime. In the first place, you have pedophiles in our society. Ministers, deputy ministers, and assistant ministers in the open, putting 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old girls in their cars. They are all with them in their cars. And nobody says anything. This guy goes to the home of the mother of this 13 or 14-year-old girl, and he grabs a few bags of rice. He gave them some little cash, and they begin to sponge on that. The people are hurting. Everybody is now desperate. There is no money. The economy has shrunk. It has dwindled to nothing. They want the money. Do you know why? You ask why cases are being compromised. Dennis, look, I can sometimes go to the extent wanting to arrest some of the relatives of perpetrators. Someone walk to my office and say, and psychologists say when somebody tells them they try to call them all stress deep out there, you know what I mean? They really kind of lie to you. They will come and say, I made a mistake to carry that man. The people complain, oh, my daughter say they lie on the man. What? When did you realize that your daughter said she lied on the man? If not because the man has visited or the victim's relatives have governance or resources, look, the people will carry up to like 10,000, 15,000 with the book. I say, country, I say, yeah, that at the time I was a county attorney in Sino. The country, yeah, what case, yeah, I said, what do you mean you drop your case? My mother says she lied on the man. That's not true. Until my friend, Councillor Ludo Sumo, went to call one of them. And he said, you will testify. And he asked, do you know the defense? She said, no. Whatever they did, he didn't do nothing to me. Nobody did anything to me. But you are just went like, whoa. And that was a very serious case. So the reason why cases are being compromised is because of the shrinking economic crisis that we have in Liberia now. Our economy has gone down, no money everywhere. The people are poor. So if somebody hurt you, somebody commit a crime against your daughter, and they brought $50,000, that looks like Jesus Christ has come from heaven and visiting our household today.
But
It hurts to say this, but it's quite unfortunate. And there are instances where we will go into the community, and sometimes you find the community member and the veteran people clashing. And you see that clashing point between the two families. So now we try to move into effect arrest, to arrest them. Why are they tampering with the case? One of the things that we need in Liberia, we need, a home to keep most of our young veterans. If you were sitting in the seat I was sitting in, you would have seen a lot of things.
Excuse me, Councillor. Councillor, excuse me. The general ministry has safe homes, safe homes. That I know.
Oh,
the general ministry has safe homes for sexual and gender-based violence and for domestic violence. People they do. So what's happening with these homes?
No, quote me. Those homes are practically dead. Nothing is there.
Even I know even the phone, some of the homes have phone. I know we have somebody we are working with, and even the number, they have like a 911 number that people are supposed to call that's not even working. But I don't want to, Councilor, I don't want to change the topic, but I want to also say you said you made a salient point that the Liberian economy is a factor to where we are today. But who is applauding this economy? So because the people are poor, you know rape is wrong, but then you want to deviate from what is doing to our society by giving them money. Who's encouraging them? So if the poor people in the villages or those who are not working, their children get raped, right? And then who brings the money? Is it not someone who's in the government?
The middle class government official who control the economy, those who set and make budgetary appropriation and put plenty of money in their budget. Like Martha was talking about the legislature, that empty legislature. Do you know that one of them, every time I complain about they have a $30,000 home. If one person got $30,000 in the name of going to work, he is going $30,000 United States of Liberian money. Even at the time we had Ebola. If you took that amount of money, where nobody is going to work, where our people go to work at the time in Liberia, what do they have? They have people selected in the federal offices to go to work. People who have a complete daily cycle, people who have food home. So if that man is a so-called big man, a middle class man in the society, big and comes in the community and he gets after somebody else's little daughter and he abuses them, who is brave enough? Even the police will be defending and defending for the person. Why? Because he says that, no, police officers themselves are involved in compromising rape cases.
So when does this stop? When does this stop? We know the problem.
The way it stops is that we provide sufficient education. I went to Nima County. I went to Nima.
Is it because the people are not educated on rape? That's why it's happening.
Exactly. Now, one of the people don't know the consequences that go along with rape.
But but that may not be a fair statement, though.
Exactly.
You may only be looking at a particular place in Liberia or maybe the villages, but we're seeing rape. They're also occurring in Monrovia, in city limits, and those people are educated and know right from wrong. But just like you say, I tend to want to agree with you when you say it's because people have money, so they go and give them money. I tend to want to agree with that. But when you say education, I don't think it's education. I don't think they don't know what's wrong. I just think everyone is complacent. So it's like, who cares?
I agree. Again, let me just agree with you a little bit. Try to put on the scale the level of literacy rate of your country, right? Look at the parity. What is the percentage of educated people in Ghana? Less than 5%. How many persons will even listen to radio and understand what the journalists say on the radio today? You need to do interpersonal connection, interpersonal team. Talk to them one-on-one. People in Monrovia there hardly listen to radio. If we were in the courts, we will prosecute the people, and like you kill one Chinese man, there are 10,000 Chinese men start coming. We will try to prosecute these cases. The unfortunate thing is that, and I hope the judiciary, is listening, and those who are decision makers within the judiciary are also listening. We think that it is necessary for the two judges to sit simultaneously. You got two judges for the rape court, and the rape prison is so crowded. That place is not even a prison anymore because it's overcrowded, sicknesses and diseases, TB, hepatitis B, all kinds of sicknesses kill the people in prison. You got only two judges, and the rape prison is one of the most crowded prisons in Monrovia. Right. Only two judges. The two judges cannot sit. Chanel was said today, after 2-3 terms, Serena come and say, why don't you open avenue for the two judges to sit simultaneously? What is not having two?
Dennis.
Hold on, Masa. I know we're going to come in. I just want to announce that this is focused on Liberia. We are discussing SGBV, especially rape. This is alarming. And if you want to join the conversation, we have 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. I will call on Prince also to announce the number in Monrovia. And we want to go to, we talk about the problem enough. We want to go to how we can solve it. I really don't believe that is an education thing, because in my town where maybe the literacy rate is low, there is more rape in Monrovia, where they got all the university compared to the village. But we'll go into that. Let Prince announce the number in Monrovia, and Masa, you will come in right after that.
0770-1051, 0770-1051, or 07770-9595. You can call those two numbers, 07770-9595. So that is, I just want to add one or two questions to the counselor before I can leave. Then we can take calls. Let me say thanks to all the panelists, all the those on the show tonight. It's so interesting, and I'm sure Liberians are following will be willing to talk. But Councillor, I want to say two things before I can ask one question. I think the reason for which the justice system was established is to use for the people, especially for those who are marginalized in society. And so the issue that the middle class will use their power and money to abuse people, and if the justice system cannot work for them, then there's a problem. Another thing there is that the law, I think, I'm not a lawyer though, but I think the law should be there to actually work for everybody, fairly for everybody, especially those who cannot find their way out. So if we have laws on the book, and there are those bottlenecks in society like Liberia, where people are poor and people are not educated, and then even the state prosecutors will be asking for kickback in some cases, and when those people do not appear in court, and and then the law does not work for them, I think there's a problem there. The last thing, the question I want to answer, you talk about those who should commit rape or those who commit crime with the age range. And I think the issue with the ambassador's daughter from Nigeria came in. Let me read something from our law and see whether this is realistic for country Liberia, or what can you recommend as a counselor. I'm reading this from the panel law of Liberia, and let me just read it. The Liberian Penal Law 1976, section 4.1 establishes that children below the age of 16 cannot be held criminally responsible for their actions. Any proceeding against children below this age are aimed at establishing juvenile delinquency rather than criminality. Now, this is, he explained it already, but the reason I'm asking this question, I want to answer for the listening audience. What sort of law is this? Knowing fully well that 16 years in our society, can can do things that 20-year-old men can do. With the case in, of course, yeah, everybody probably go that way. With the case in Nigeria, those two guys abused the girl, and then the law is setting them free because of what is written in this law.
Yes.
How do you look at that? Is this something that we can? I mean, is this something we can change? 16 years can get married in our society. They can born children. So I really ask that question.
In fact, that was the old law. You are reading the old law. The new rape law says 18. So I hope I'm not increasing your frustration, Prince, because it used to be 16. Now they say if the man is less than 18, he cannot commit a crime of rape. He's considered, and that is the same reason why he cannot be allowed to vote, because he has not reached the age of maturity. He doesn't reach age maturity. He's still a minor. He's in a minority age. And so our law is that as much as you have not, grown up, the benchmark is that you must be 18, to be able to commit such a crime.
So what's the penalty? What's the penalty because you are below 18?
Yeah,
you still go to penalty there. You can
penalty.
still go to the juvenile court. They have what you call juvenile court. That's the reason why you have the juvenile courts in Monrovia. They are taken there, and sometimes if the person is I don't like to call them recidivist, it's a hard word for them, but if the person is a repeated offender, for instance, right? If the person is a repeated offender, the juvenile court, there should be juvenile jailhouse. They can go to jail, they can be penalized for those kind of things. And not every instant that will be gotten out of the hook. You understand? Other places, they got juvenile courts, they got juvenile jailhouse, they got juvenile pressing.
So, Councilor, how can we tell somebody's age in Liberia? Is it from birth? How do we know?
The first best evidence is the person's relatives. And you understand? Your parent will be able to say when you were born. Then another best evidence would be the birth record.
Which we don't have.
Well, you can get it to another evidence, because when we were behind your 16-year-old, so-called 16 or 17-year-old child, we go to the hospitals that in your community, and we go to the schools that you may have attended. A form 3-4 years ago, what age did you put on the form? That's what we can knock you down from.
But that's illegal. That's illegal, though.
Yes.
No, it's not. It is not illegal when you put in for a search document, search warrant. Under the law, you call it search and seizure. When you ask, you go to the court and seek the permit of the court to move to look for these documents. If the court agrees, they will serve it on the school. They say, look, we are going to school X. Please allow the court to check for this man's record. Even in your bedroom, if the court issues a search and seizure, we will call a break and enter raid. And we'll give to your house. You say you can't open the door. The law give us the authority to use jackhammer or even caterpillar to break your window, break your door to enter. Break and enter, we enter and search what we are looking for. If we find it, fine. If we didn't find it, we have certified the post record, the post instrument. So all I'm saying is that the laws are good. From the broader and the larger perspective, the laws are good. Now, long before, you never had men be raped, right? But now it's broad, like Martha was saying, and that is the law.
Randy said, what good are they?
Thank you. So how many people have they been able to prosecute?
Randy, I can just read your mind.
There was a woman I had in my court, was it 2017?
Hey, Councilor. That one case in how many?
She used a sex vibrator to abuse a little girl and told her, welcome to our world. We had that woman in jail, and I left her in jail and came to America. But I know very well that men have been raped in Liberia. Men have said boys. There are little boys that are raped, some of them as low as 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years. But grown up adults. You understand? So rape is just an evil that has crept into our society. That somebody was saying that whether it is epidemic or an epidemic, I think it's one of them, or the two come together. You understand? So it's so bad in our country. Liberia is in red. We have not been able to do anything to even reduce the commission of the crime in Liberia. Somebody was saying, you said that, I disagree with you, that the number of rape that number of rape that be committed in Monrovia is far higher than what is happening in the interior. I beg to differ. You know what happening in the interior? Most of the crimes that are committed in the interior are swept under the carpet. What is the reason? Because they feel that when you rape a 12-year-old girl, you do nothing to her, she will stay born, baby. I don't know about that. So this is happening right in Sebeke. I know you from Sebeke or from where, but right in Sebeke or right in Jidepo, right in your own that Jidepo is happening there. I was there. You understand? So you have most of the cases that come to court is very small. Less than 2% comes to court.
Thank you, Councillor. Let me bring in our first caller here. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
This is Elvis. I'm calling from Minnesota.
Elvis, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Question or comment, sir? 1 minute.
Yeah, quickly, I got a comment. Thank you again to the panelists. Quickly, I think the person we really need to put the blame for this whole situation is the Attorney General. You know, he has a general behind his title for a reason. He should be the one instructing and putting his men on the front lines to fight this. He's almost kind of an autonomous person within the government. He doesn't need the president to tell him how to be a lawyer and how to be a general to delegate, you know, to his deputies. What is he doing? You know, he doesn't have any strategy to fight this. If it's a pandemic, he's supposed to be on the front lines fighting against, you know, crimes. What is he doing about it? You know, so I think that the Attorney General has a big part to play in this, and I think he's being a bit quiet. And just a personal story for myself, you know, I have a family member who was strong-armed raped during the war, something that I didn't even know about, and, you know, and I found out about it recently. So I think a lot of people have been impacted by it. Some of our family members have, you know, been on the receiving side of it. Some of our family members have been the perpetrator of it. So it has really messed up our society as a whole. And I think it's a social problem that we all have to play a part in. We have to form social groups to put pressure on the government to take action. You know, this topic is very important, and I'm glad you brought it on this platform tonight. Thank you again for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Elvis. Let me bring in Aliyu Kamara. Aliyu?
Controversial, Aliyu. How you doing? Listen, the problem we're having with this rape issue is not going away anytime soon. This rape issue is going to multiply every year, and the reason is simple. There's no single individual responsible. That means if you have a boss and you're looking for a driver and I apply for you to give me the job, you give me the boss, allow me to sit in the driver's seat, but do not give me the key for the bus. How can I drive the bus? The problem we're having, and the counselor is missing the entire point, like he's completely off track. The problem we're having is a structural problem, just like any other situation in Liberia. If you don't put the necessary structures in place, you can hire all of the best lawyers in the country. The problem will only multiply, just like crimes in the country, you know. So now you brought up a great point. Somebody said, you asked the question, how do you know the person is underage? How do you know someone is underage in Liberia? I was about almost 20 years old before I got my birth certificate. All right? There was a situation where, and again, this whole thing about, you know, raping, statutory rape, they have to really define it or redefine it. Unless they do so, a lot of people will not be able to go up front with some of these cases. Let me give you this scenario. There was someone who was arrested for statutory rape that he slept, even though it was consensual because she was under the age of 18, considered rape. So he was arrested. Come to find out, a 16-year-old girl has a 2-year-old child. So the person she has a 2-year-old child is alive, well, and everything, was never arrested for statutory rape. But the man who slept with her afterwards, after she's already had a baby, was a rapist. You understand what I'm saying? So they have to really refine this thing. Isn't it? I don't want to be derogatory about anything. They have to redefine something like statutory rape in Liberia. That is why in Ghana, the people brought it down to 16, the age of 16, because it's very, very difficult to to determine someone's age. Somebody can come on a village and say, oh, my daughter was born so time around the time that deep pine tree was so and so, and somebody conclude, okay, that's 14. The woman would have been 20 years old. But again, the government has to put more power, more pressure, equip the police, redefine the role of the gender ministry. I don't even know what that ministry exists. I think child protection should be under national police, and the government should pump more money into police force, hire more professionals, people who are capable of this psychosocial things, and people who are able to rehabilitate rape victims. And these are all things that there has to be a whole package. It's a serious structural issue. We have a long way to go, but thank you guys for flagging it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aliyu. So, Councillor, my question there is, we're talking about evidence, vivid and other evidence, right? So can we go back? Okay, this 15-year-old child had, even though it was not reported, but now we know the father of the baby of this 15-year-old mother. Can we go and issue an arrest?
For the guy, the second offender?
No, the first, the baby pa, even though it was never reported, but now we know he's the father, and the child is 15 years old or 16. What do we do in that case? Now we know we have the evidence because he's the pa.
Yeah, you could arrest. You could arrest the baby's father. You could arrest the second offender. The reason is simple. It is established that the person, if the first one was not reported, it does not vitiate the fact that the child is less than 18. The fact remains that she is less than 18 and she does not have any consent power. She's underage, and anybody else said to her, you would have violated her whether she consented or not. That is it. The laws are on the book and the law is clear. The fact that she didn't report the first one does not mean that the second one should have it. Because she had a kid, it does not mean that her age has jumped from 16 now to 35. She is still 16 or 17 years old, and she's still being protected by the law. So that cannot be an alibi, cannot be an excuse for anybody to say, oh, but I was not the first person. She had a child before. That is more beside the issue. The fact is that you have had sex with somebody who is less than 18 years of age, and the law says if you did so, you have committed statutory rape. And the law is blunt on it. No dodging, no left and right. It's it. So yes, we could arrest if we found again. It comes back to the technical sophistication of evidence. We talk about sophisticated evidence, scientific evidence. How do we prove that this baby is the first perpetrator's, baby? You got to go scientifically, right?
Right. Councilor, let me bring you up the last caller from my answer. I can bring on Prince if you got any call. Call out your name and where you calling from.
My name is Enoch May Jones. Hey, Massa and Glenda, how are you guys?
Hey, May Jones, how are you, sweetie?
I'm good. You know, this is not something that has happened out of a vacuum in Liberia. Liberia and most of Africa have been a society where the respect for women, we have materialized women. We've never taught men in Africa to respect women and women's body. Men has been made to believe that a woman is there for his taking, however way in which he wants. That is some of the issues that we have. For years, women in Africa, women in quote-unquote third world countries and children are kept poor. When you keep people poor, you keep them vulnerable to the power that be, and the power that be is usually men. We don't teach people in Africa about sexuality. We don't have no sexual education at all. All we do is put women and children in positions where they are victims. So we need to talk about those issues and not just focus on the, yes, the rape is a huge problem, but it stems from somewhere. And we continue to ignore where it stems from. It stems from the fact that women and children are the poorest in Africa and everywhere else. We keep women and children vulnerable and at the mercy of men and people in power. Same thing with, it goes with men too. We keep some young boys poor. So yes, boys get raped too. They get raped by women, they get raped by men. Likewise, even some young girls get raped by women. It's when we keep people poor. And we need to do better. Instead of the people eating the money and going up to the village and taking $30,000 and saying, oh, I brought the money. When the money comes from the government, we use all of those things to keep people poor. So we need to talk about that.
Thank you, Inime.
Dennis John, this is Mr. King. I just want to briefly interject here about the evidence. Because Councillor John was talking about evidence. Hello, Massa and Glenda. This is Mr. King. I was former.
Oh, Mr. King, how are you?
When you talk about evidence, it is possible to develop your professional Liberian investigators. We had them before. So when you have to look at the corpus delicti of the crime and you collect the evidence necessary to prosecute. But the people that you have in Liberia, investigators under the police department, and I can say so and challenge anybody, they have not been trained to understand the rule of law, the corpus delicti of the crime, and how to collect physical evidence. And we can get all that through the laboratories that exist in Ghana, in Nigeria, and that's what we used to do long ago when we had professional law enforcement departments. The FBI at that time headed by Honorable Patrick Miniker, an FBI trained person. I myself trained with the FBI. We had places to go to collect the physical evidence from the crime scene. It can be done. And you don't need the parents to prosecute for rape. Now, we understand that, and I'm just saying this on the surface, that we need and we have the ways and means to collect the physical evidence to substantiate a charge of rape. Both ways. But we are not using what we have. What you all should do is contact the gentleman in charge of security in the Senate. He was trained at the FBI. So you should challenge him. He's a former law enforcement officer. He knows how to get the evidence evaluated. And that's all I have to say right now. There's much more to say, but that's my background. And I challenge anybody online to talk about it. I'm ready for them. I study constitutional law as well as criminal law. In Liberia, we have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pushkin. Prince, do you have any call from Monrovia?
Numbers once more 0770-1051, 0770-1051, or 0770-95-958. Good evening, your name, where you call from, caller? How you doing?
Let me appreciate the service for the US, and I will also appreciate you for the platform. Well, public gender-based violence is a very good one, specifically the issue of rape. You know, as I collect from some of the families across the board, you know, the issue of rape, you know, is also about education in Liberia. But then in the rural areas, it's not so much about education, but then in our society as a whole, there's also stigmatization. One of the reasons you see rape cases are not very reported because the issue of rape is being stigmatized. You know that the people that are being raped are rich folks? No. Some of these rape cases are happening in a poor community. But then people have experienced that the family will be stigmatized. You know, you pass through the community, this person has been raped. You know, the name rape and those people want to disassociate themselves with it. So that's a really bad stuff is being compromised at a community level. You know that people take money to give it to them. Even if you are an advocate and you want to get involved at it, no one was raped yet.
Thank you.
Because I saw the law, I think those laws looking for
Thank you. We take more calls on 0770-1051, 0770-1051, 0770-9595. Good evening. Yeah, where you come from? Please be audible so the people can hear you. Go ahead, Jackson. Why you say so? Thank you.
Thank you, Prince.
Thank you.
Hey, Prince, let me take one call here.
Thank you. Thank you. So there is also, let me take the last one. Maybe, hello, your name, where you come from, you've been hanging on the line. Go ahead, Emmanuel. You got to move on, start the radio, Emmanuel. Go ahead.
Hello.
Where did that happen? Where? Okay, thank you. I'm sure the councilor heard the question.
No, I didn't hear you.
Oh, wow. He said there's a case in Lofa, a 70-year-old girl was raped. And then she said it is not a rape. She and the guy loved him. He was 19. And the guy was persecuted by the court. He was found guilty. He went to jail. And the guy committed suicide. So who's responsible for that?
Wow.
But you say suicide. Suicide was somebody take away their own life. So.
And the reason was that she pleaded with her parents that she loved the guy. The guy was a boyfriend. And it was not a rape. But the Lord did not look at it from that point. The Lord still had to persecute him because she had not reached the age of consent. She was 17 years old. And the guy was 19.
So how was the not convicted? She never went to court and testified?
Yeah.
She went to court.
She went to court, but she said they were loving. It was not a rape.
Yeah, fine.
Look, Dennis, let me say something, man.
The fact that she went to court and said that excuse me, the fact that she went to court and said that she was loving, it means that the sex we were having was illegal. That means she said yes, we are having sex.
All right, let me bring in my last caller here. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Freedom. Is it okay to speak now?
Freedom, go ahead.
My name is Freedom. I'm calling from Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, in the U.S.
Go ahead, Freedom.
Okay. It seems to me that I am very disappointed in my African brothers and sisters. I am also in America, and I'm also, I consider myself African as well. But it always seems like the men in Africa kind of get away with what they do to the women, which I, for the life of me, cannot understand that. But have y'all ever thought about letting the woman make the rules for the crime? Let the mothers make, it seems like the men are making all the rules to what happens to the person if they're caught being raped or caught molesting or sodomizing a child. Well, since it's the mothers that are the creators in life, why not let them set the punishment for the rapists?
Thank you, Freedom. Councilor?
I'm asking a question because I would like to hear the two ladies that's on the panel. I would love to hear, since the female deity is the first god ever to be worshipped in Africa and many places in the world.
Janice, can I say something?
On the panel has to say about what I just said, about the women, the creators, the mothers, setting the punishment for the crime.
Right, but Freedom, where in the world do the women set the punishment?
What I'm saying is, why? Say it again. I'm sorry.
No, I said, I mean, is there an example where women set the punishment for crime?
Dennis, she wants to hear from the women on the panel.
Not let them.
Oh, okay. No, hold on, Master, I'm trying to understand.
What I'm saying is, the men take on a lot of responsibility. I'm trying to get out because it's kind of like feeding back at me. What I'm saying is, a lot of times it seems like men are in charge to what happens and the rules and regulations to what happens to our children. Because whether it is a girl child or a boy child, we are the portal that brings it into the world. Why not let us set the punishment for what happened to our child?
Thank you.
Because when the men, it seems like the men set the punishment, sometimes it's looked past.
Thank you.
I want to hear what the women think about it.
All right, thank you. You can take your answer up the air, right? Go ahead, Masa.
Thank you, Freedom, right? Thank you for that contribution. But let me just say, Liberia professes or is trying to be like every other democratic country, meaning that we have rules and we have laws, and Liberia professes to be the country with the rule of law, meaning that we do not make laws in Liberia solely on the basis of one's gender, ethnicity, what have you. What we need to do is, I do agree that it would be good if more women were making some of these laws, because women, like you said, women, historically have bore the brunt of what has happened in that country, especially when it comes to this topic that we are discussing. So what we what we need to do is to encourage and to support more women running for public office, especially the national legislature that makes the law. So the our jurisprudence is almost like the United States, and our structure of governance is like the United States. We have the executive, we have the legislative, and then we have the judiciary. So we have the legislative branch of government that makes our law. Unfortunately for us, we have 30 Senate seats, and out of the 30 Senate seats, we have only 2 female senators, and we have 73 legislative seats. And out of the 73 legislative seats, I think we have between 7 to 9. I'm not too sure. I think it's 9. But so what we need to do is to encourage and support more women who want to run for public office, because then we will have more women at the table in terms of the national legislature, helping to make those laws that will, of course, affect women and what happened with women. That's my contribution to that, sister's comment and Freedom.
Something else, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, here's the situation. That is embarrassing. That in Africa, I can see that happening over here, because remember, we're over here and have to deal with what we have to deal with over here with the other people. But in Africa, you should praise the entity that you have as the female entity, which is mother, which is woman. there should be more women dealing with your government than men, because men don't think like women. You don't feel like a woman does when her child is hurt. You should let a woman make the punishment. Women need to be more involved. That's why everything is discombobulated, because it's unbalanced. If you have that many men, you should have that many women. Unbalanced. It's unbalanced. You're only more in office is because you're stronger than us physically. We know that mentally you're not smarter than us. What I'm trying to say to you is a woman, just because it should be balanced. It should be balanced. It should be that many men. It should be that many women.
So
thank you, Freedom. You can take the rest of the air. All right, go ahead, Glenda.
So I'm just gonna say Freedom's point, and not I don't want to, I don't mean any harm, but it could also come from a perspective of how well does she know Africa, know about Africa. Because when you're saying is we come from a continent where we have educated people, like Massa said. Okay, suffice it to say there may be more men in different jobs, or there are less women, but also you can also compare here to the American society here. Do they have more women in power than men here? It's the same thing. So what background is she coming from to say that? And like Master said, it behooves us, if we're still in the minority in different positions, it also means that whatever little amount of women, number of women we have, we can also have a voice and encourage other women to come forth and promote other women to be able to speak out. But I wouldn't want to just respond to her because I don't know based on what's her background. What is it that she knows about Africa? That's why she's thinking that women should be the one making all of the decisions, or decisions when it comes to children.
Thank you, Gladys. Glendy, sorry. Time is fast spent. I want us to quickly touch on the solutions. You know, where do we go from here? What can be done? Okay. And Councillor, let me start with you, Councillor. So what do we do now? I mean, we in the water. The rape case is going up. The feminist in chief is not really performing as chief enough.
Like Martha has said initially, that one of the most important aspects of this entire struggle to silence rape is based on budgetary allotment. In the absence of budget, in the absence of the necessary and appropriate budgetary allocation, we are yet to move forward. We remain stagnant, and we will continue to just dance around it. For instance, I heard somebody turn lies and lambasting the police. True. But again, the police, with all it has also been doing well. I told you we trained some police officers that are in the SGBV department of the police. Has a completely set aside division for SGBV. And that department has police officers. And most of the time, we train them. If the police has something like $5,000 in its budget, wherein they got to tackle armed robbery, they got to tackle other, petty offenses in the country, how much of that money will be directed towards SGBV to even motivate or train the police officer to be able to take it? Because the police is the first line in the criminal justice system. The police goes on the crime scene to arrest. The police procure the evidence. The police comes to court to testify, the police work with the prosecutor from the beginning to the end until the matter rests. Now, where do we go from here? How do we, like I said, we need to provide, you cannot give somebody a Jaguar, like Massa said, and you don't put in fuel to move the car. You got the prosecutor. People must know, most of the time people will say, the rape my daughter over for me, I didn't have money. And I don't have money to go pay a lawyer. We have always told the folks in Liberia that when it comes to rape cases, nobody pays a lawyer. Lawyers are working free of charge. You got hotlines to call, yet people don't understand that. How do you send people into the legal world to be able to educate our people? It turns down to budget. It turns down to money.
Thank you.
So we need sound budgetary allotment to be able to push our agenda to where we expect it to be. In the absence of that, we are going nowhere. We remain stagnant and we remain to where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. This start between January and June 2021, the Ministry of Justice's Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Unit reported 605 cases. This is a U.S. State Department report. And those 605 cases are comprising 450 statutory rape cases, 100 rape cases, 55 gang rape cases, and 10 cases of sodomy. Wow. These numbers don't look good. Massa, what's the solution here? Where do we go?
Yeah, absolutely. First, let me just establish that the ordinary Liberians that we refer to as being illiterate. Yes, we do have some issues with people being illiterate, of course, but our people have learned to play the games and they've learned to survive as well. It's all about survival, basically. So they see how the system runs. In the first place, let me just say that we have an upside down society. Liberia operates in the reverse. Liberia does not operate like any normal society that we know. Okay, so Liberia operates in the reverse, upside down. Everything is upside down. The ordinary people have been made poorer than they ever were before. And they know that nothing will happen if they go to the police, to the Justice Department, to the magistrate, and report cases of rape and other cases against them and their children, because they know nothing will happen. They also know that these officials, these police officers, some of them, this is not an indictment, it's not a sweeping indictment of the police force, but they know that they have some bad apples amongst these people. They have some bad apples among our officials, even at the echelon of government. So our ordinary people know that Liberia is an extremely corrupt society. Nothing will happen. Nothing will come out of it. So what do? They've also learned to compromise. So someone rapes your daughter, and maybe you're so angry momentarily, you want to do something about it. Your consciousness tells you must do something about it because you are responsible to protect your child. And so you react immediately. Your first reaction is to protect your child. You report this case, and then as the case is going on, you see how it goes. In the first place, you have to transport the policeman who's supposed to come and collect evidence. You have to buy them food. You have to buy them water. You have to pay people on the side money you don't have. And then the perpetrator, in the meantime, happens maybe to be an official, a local official, someone who has money. He posts you on the side, say, look, this thing is happening. I can give you this, I can give you that. Maybe they give you $500 US. For the poor people, it's a lot of money. They look at it and they try to justify it and they try to reason within a dilemma. And they say, well, you know what? My daughter is a woman. She's going to know man business anyway. She's going to have children anyway. She's going to do this thing anyway. So you know what? Let's compromise. So the state, the one of the callers, Miss Jones or King, talked about poverty. So every time you have a society that keeps its citizens in poverty, especially the most vulnerable, the women, the young boys, every time you keep them in abject poverty, you create a situation where you take away their voices, you snatch the voices away from them. They are easily intimidated by other people who have money by other people who have political power in the society. So these kinds of things happen. Now, for me, I would think that one of the way this issue can be resolved is that it starts from the top. Our officials, from our president office to our vice president office to that legislature, and I keep saying to that legislature because for me, I think it's one of the biggest problems we have in Liberia. So our officials will have to set the tone, the narrative for the rest of the country to follow. So if the president office is serious enough to deal with this pandemic of the situation of rape and sexual-based violence, if the vice president office is strong enough based upon the utterances, the policies that are coming from the offices, and the way how they conduct themselves, if they're serious enough, if they enforce the laws and the rest of the population sees this, gradually people will fall in line. But there is not a political will to enforce the rule of law. Like I said, they have so many legal instruments on the books, against what we're talking about, but they are not being enforced. And people are complacent because, Liberia is a place people get away with anything. People they give them job and they don't do their job. Sometimes people want to do their job. Other people stop them from doing their job. It's a rotten society. They need to, every time somebody is accused of being a rapist or whatsoever, if you are holding public office, that person should immediately be suspended while they are being investigated. And they should be prosecuted. It doesn't happen. You have a key minister accused of sexual or harassment, sexual violation, and he's still active. He's still active in his job. So the ordinary people see this. And so that's why they play the game as well. So for me, the way we can resolve this is that it comes from the top. Our people have to be serious to enforce the law, and we must respect the rule of law. There must be equal distribution of the law and equal application of the law to everybody across the board, and try and get people out of poverty so that they don't lose their voices. Because when people are poor, their rights are easily violated. That's how I see it.
All right, let me give one caller just 30 seconds. Caller, your name and where you call it from. Just 30 seconds. We are out of time.
Yeah, sure. My name is Maurican Kennan, calling from Bronx, New York. Liberian by birth and by nationality. Actually, the issue of the rape in Liberia, as the lady was speaking right now, she is telling the truth. The Liberian government does not have capacity to control this issue. As a matter of fact, if you call into Liberia today, you ask many young girls, they will even tell you senior government officials can have sex with them because they need jobs from the government. If they don't give themselves to the official, they will not get the job. Therefore, before we go from A to Z, we as a Liberian national, we should all focus on Liberian government. Tell them what they are doing is not right. What they are doing, they are humiliating our females, our mothers, our sister, and our own children. We all should be collectively speaking and stand against the Liberian government.
Thank you.
That's my impact for the program tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Glennie, your solution. How we move forward from here?
I think the only solution is power is inherent in the people. The government has failed. It's easy. You know that. Nothing is being done. We have the same people in power doing the same thing over and over again. No accountability. So when does it stop? It stops when the people understand that they control the power and they can effect the changes that they want to see. That's it for me. If we don't come together collectively to be able to hold our government accountable so that we see the changes that we want, we're going to continue talking this over and over, and people will say, and then sometimes you get to a place where you want to talk to somebody about it and say, oh, nothing's going to happen. So why we just keep talking?
So how we do that? How do we collectively come together and do that?
So one thing is like what you're doing now, encouraging people. People have to own, we as Liberians have to own the problems in our country. Only as in I am a part of it and I want to be a part of the change. No, there's no point in looking back. Where did we, how did this start? Where did we come from? What are we going to do? Who started this? We're here now. What can we do to fix it? We have to be able to hold our government accountable and say the changes that we want, this is what we want to see in our government. Now, people will say, oh, y'all out of the country, so y'all can talk to we were in the country. It also stems back to what the counselor said. Education. There could be a task force. If the general ministry is not doing it, there can be a task force on education to educate the people on what is right and what is wrong. And there also can be groups that can be also able to hold the government accountable. But when does it stop? It's almost like this is just another show in another show in another show. And the people who have the power to make the changes, we do nothing.
Prince, how can we solve this problem, man? You're in the city and you see this unfold almost every day.
Thank you, Dennis. And so, Dennis, the people who are the victims, that is the poor people who are the victims, cannot be held responsible for the problem. We have laws on the book. We have the amended rape law. We have the Domestic Violence Act that was passed by the legislature. Those laws should be implemented. The reason for which you would think, or people would think, that rape cases may compromised is because the people don't have confidence in the justice system anymore. They lost confidence in the police. The first responding to those cases, they lost confidence into them. They feel that the justice system cannot help them because they are bottlenecks surrounding the proceeding of the law. And so I think holistically we have to work together as like, I think we have to take this matter into our hands to hold government accountable. People that we need, that this is our right, that this is gross human rights violation. This is violation of international laws. Government must act. The people are poor. So not because maybe in my village, Bon County, no rich man from there in Monrovia on the radio. Not just go there one weekend and just get some cash in my pocket and begin to abuse girls who have now reached the age of consent. So I think another thing the minister said to me in that interview that I told you about, she also spoke about the issue of awareness, like the counselor said, and everybody said. So we need to work around it. And all those things cannot work without budgetary allocation. The people also responsible for that because the people have representatives who do the allocation, who scrutinize the budget. The very legislature that passes the Domestic Violence Act, how that those laws will be adhered to when you pass a budget and you just don't care. Again, the power is inherent into the people.
Yes.
And so the people must act.
They got to.
We should do that. Like we are using this medium today, we should have student engagement, maybe find a way to work along with some of those institutions, maybe take some tour in the countries and do some awareness and inform the people as to how to hold their government responsible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Coach King talk about the police. The police training, the National Police Academy training, the budget for that for the whole year is 165,000. Just to let you know. So if Coach King said the police, they can be trained to be able to collect evidence. And whether this is deliberate to defund the police, defund the judiciary, and then use their money so that when they commit crime, meaning on the part of the powerful and wealthy, who live on stealing from us, so that we can go and bow down to them to worship. So when they are raping our daughters, our girls, our mothers, our aunties, and we still crawl to them like obedient pets, asking for handouts because they are using our national coffers as a Chinese style buffet, and they control the purse, and they can do anything to us at will. This is pathetic, this is sad, And I don't know how many times we should say it and what can we do next? Because the people that are lording over us, using our own money to enslave us, are the same people we crawl to beg, and we are at their mercy. Something needs to be done. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., we're going to be here with Tough Talking Thursday, and we're going to be discussing the Alaco Limited and Omnia Strategy LLP authored forensic audit report of the CPP framework document. The audit report that Mr. Cummings probably paid for and asked for is out, and we're going to be discussing that tomorrow. You don't want to miss it, and that's on Tough Talking Thursday. I'll be here to moderate. Don't miss it. Councillor Gabriel, let's get your closing comment, and we're going to draw down the curtains.
It is my pleasure to be on this thought-provoking, high-profile program tonight. I'm excited to share my little idea with the Liberian people, and I hope that we will all centralize as Liberians and to be able to push forward to find a remedy to rescue our country from the hands of the monsters that are bullying our children and bullying our wives, our sisters and daughters. So thank you, Mr. Jar, for this opportunity, and I hope to always be with you. I'm always available. It is always my pleasure. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Glennis, 30 seconds. Closing, please.
So finally, I got here today.
Don't let us talk about what went on behind the screen.
But thank you. I think it was a good 2 hours spent. Thank you to the counselor, to Masa. Of course, Masa is our senior. This is a well-rounded woman. I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to sit here with her tonight. But it's been a pleasure, and I thank you. And I hope this won't be my last time.
Thank you. Masa and myself fought a lot on the list set, but we have some area where we agree. Okay. Masa, you're closing.
Well, thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure always coming on your show. And Glenda, of course, you're my little sister. It's always a pleasure. And you're doing well, by the way. I'm waiting for my invitation.
It's coming.
And, Councillor Gabriel and Prince, thank you so much for your contribution. But, Councillor, I must say, I didn't realize the volume of work that, you and your team are doing on the ground. Yes. I think there's room for improvement, but we must give you kudos for being brave enough and just courageous enough to try to do what you're doing. It can get better. And hopefully all of us, the more we push this, the more we talk and the more we brainstorm appropriate ideas, hopefully it help you and things get better. But I would say, and I've been saying it from day one, and I will continue to say it, the honors for this clearly lies at the feet of our officials, starting from the president's office. Yes, Mr. President established the Interministerial Task Force. In 2020, he declared a national emergency. He assisted and brought in and commissioned a DNA machine, but it's only one machine. We have 15 counties. And but I would like to see the government, starting from our legislature to the president's office, to the Ministry of Finance and the National Bank, make appropriate budgetary allotment for all these different programs that will address this pandemic that is the sexual-based violence and the rape against women. Because, like Prince said, and everybody else on the show knows, what is happening with our people is a gross violations of their human rights, and people can be prosecuted for this in the future, and I would say in the near future. We are in the era of international human rights, so we have to take caution and pay attention in Liberia, because everything we do is a thin line between violating the rights of others and being big shot. So again, for me, we clearly need to be looking at our officials, starting from the president's office, appealing to them to please do more to help bring relief to our people. I can't imagine what it is for the parents who's like the 3-year-old child who died after the sexual violence, the rape, the young boys who are being sodomized. A country that does not protect its own people, a government that does not protect its own people, be careful before you find yourself in the Hague tomorrow.
Thank you. And that's the former TRC Commissioner, Martha Amelia Washington. Prince, you're closing, and you can let our folks know that we appreciate them listening to us throughout the country. We want to thank our viewers tonight, Prince.
All right, so Dennis, I'm honored to share this platform with all those great people tonight. Sister Mianta, the counselor, Gladian, sorry if I mispronounced her name.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be with you tonight, and it's our hope to always be here in the studio, teaming with you guys from out there or other parts of the world to adequately inform our people as to what's happening in the bottom part of this is Liberia gets better one day, that we all will be proud. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. This is Prime FM 105.5. We are right here at the foot of the U.S. Embassy on Snapper Hill Benson Street in Monrovia.
Thank you, Prince. We want to thank our viewers for watching tonight. Keep it here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." No matter what you believe, rape is a crime. We should all join hands to fight it because we are all Liberians. Good night and God bless.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our